Get started. Zionsville Architectural Review Committee meeting Tuesday, January the 10th. Call to order. We have 6 of us in person. I see Mike Billig online. That's 7 members. So recognize that we have a quorum. Do we have a motion to adopt today's agenda?
I'll move to adopt.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the approval of minutes for May 10th and November 22nd. I don't see that we have minutes in front of us.
The May ones are not finished. Sorry, fellas.
Okay.
Ladies. Should have November though.
We will, not having those in front of us, I say we push those to the next meeting for approval. Reports. Are there any reports from the town today? Nope. All right. Yes. All right. Old business. Is there any old business? All right. See none. Moving on to new business. We have the election of officers. So is there, we have a president and a vice president. And a secretary. We have 3 officers. All right. Oh, that's right. Sorry, Mike.
That's all right. I'm not sitting next to you.
Who would like to run for president? Do we have anybody who's really excited about that? Anyone?
Well, I guess I'd ask, does the current officers want to maintain?
Sure.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Hey, Mike.
They'll avoid the campaigning.
Mike, would you like somebody to take on secretary?
I think somebody else could take secretary. If there's an interest there, definitely.
Yeah. Mike's been gracious, to give up secretary and then take secretary back again. And so I feel like if somebody else could be secretary, that would be really helpful. I'm happy to do it. All right. So David Roush would like to run for secretary.
What's your platform?
I had an incredibly weak moment.
Immediate regret.
You might be president.
Been there. I'm not that weak yet.
All right. So for president, the one thing I'll say is if I run for president again, would be to make sure that when we have projects that need people to represent those projects or need people to go out and take a look at those projects, that it doesn't fall upon the officers to do that, that everybody step up and help out. Because if we also have to check out every project and all that, I would rather not be president so that I can work on projects more. So, all right. Okay. All right.
Classified documents in your office.
We need to go find out.
The ones I generated or the ones that I took from the town.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it really matters. It's just, we just need.
Sit here.
All right. So our slate is President Todd Rotman, Vice President Tom Castellini, and Secretary David Roush. Do we have a motion to elect those officers?
I'll move.
All right. Do we have a second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
You gotta have discussion first.
Oh, sorry. Is there any discussion?
Mr. I'm in charge of parliamentary procedure.
Hear the crickets?
Yeah, I have a clarification question. Does my election mean I have to do the minutes today?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Most definitely it does. It's January.
I would have hated that and voted negative on myself.
And do we record these?
Yes, we do.
We do.
So we can go back and enjoy this all over again. Excellent.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm guessing we should actually formally vote for each group, for each position. If you want to
Okay.
follow parliamentary procedures.
Yeah, that would be great. Are you
Not
sure
a
you don't
mo-
want to say
not a motion.
secretary? That was really helpful.
Can we write in candidate?
All right. All those in favor of Todd Rotman for president, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All those in favor of Tom Castellini for vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Remember the last name. Any
Sorry.
Opposed.
All right, for secretary, David Roush, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have a new slate of officers for this year. Congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
All right, moving on to other business, the Zionsville Business District Improvement Program. An update on that. And we have Mr. Tom Castellini here to speak about it.
Well, I sent out an email asking members to do a walkabout with me in the village. And four of us have been able to do that. And others that want to schedule a time, just call me and we'll find a time that works best for you. I think that was valuable for us to do it. And I'd like to ask those that walked with me, what your response and take on the improvements that we can make in the village. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think it was good to kind of see it with different eyes because people get used to the way things are and you almost don't see it anymore. And Tom, you gave great insight as to what somebody who might be here for the first time would see. And it was good to see that with those kinds of eyes and then recognize all these different things that were really not well taken care of or ugly or not handicap accessible and very inconsistent from block to block.
In the spaces that are available, the town park or the town clock area, which is the part of the town park system, that space can really be re-envisioned and much better use of the space. And we've all recognized that on the east side of Main Street, those 3 blocks need some landscape architecture improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, and there's a tree in front of what's going to be the Tipsy Mermaid that's we're hoping that will come down sometime in the spring. David, you know where the sidewalk is heaved because of the roots from the tree?
I do.
That tree is going to go away. It has to go away because those roots are going to continue to disrupt the sidewalk. So in finishing off, that will be an improvement when Tipsy Mermaid opens to have a more safer sidewalk in front.
And more visibility.
Yeah.
Is Lance already in the loop doing, sort of is that in progress, do you know, or is it just,
Yeah, Lance and I have had a conversation about how that tree's gonna have to go.
I'm just thinking maybe the opportunity to, not to get off on a tangent, but do that now while the whole site's a mess might be a good thing.
So they'd have to redo the sidewalk as well then to level it off.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but that's
But
not terrible.
No, that's pretty simple and it's not, the sidewalk will remain the same brick, but it'll be a little safer. And so going forward, I will look into, unless if anyone has a landscape architect that they think we should talk to or have come out and take a look, I have someone that I can reach out to start getting some sort of vision for those 3 blocks. And then I think I showed you all the possibility for a public restroom. I am unable to get a hold of the property owner yet, but Todd had a fabulous idea for a spot for a public restroom. I'm gonna give him your idea. And well, but here's the cool part about it is that when you're trying to have a vision of what it could look like, and we have very little space, free land to use, I think Todd had a fabulous idea.
Oh, God, pressure's on now. All right. Well, we were taking a look at the parking lot by the town's Christmas tree and thinking that you could capture, I think, 4 parking spaces that are up against the sidewalk that are in the middle of the parking lot on the east side and construct a building there that would serve as kind of a pseudo welcome center bathroom building. And it would be, right up against the sidewalk. It's fairly centrally located, and you could have a men's restroom with 2 to 3 fixtures, a women's restroom, 2 to 3 fixtures, and then basically kind of a vestibule, enlarged vestibule that could have flyers, brochures, things like that. It's a place for people to get in out of the rain when it's raining. It's a good place for people to meet each other out of the elements. It'd be very visible, and it would be kind of like almost like a welcome center as well. So I know there's parking issues in the village that everybody talks about, so it would be the removal of parking. But Tom and I also identified so many places that, could be public parking, especially after 5 o'clock in the village, that, I mean, the potential net gain through these different project ideas would be a gain of parking, not a loss of parking, even by losing these spots. So that was just kind of our thought when we were out there.
Do you think 4 spots is pretty much the size for the footprint?
4 to 6, yeah.
But with the new parking lot at Sycamore or Main Street and Sycamore, where the PNC lot used to be, if it wasn't for those spaces, I think that the new spaces, that trying to eliminate 4 to 6 spaces in the central parking lot, and the gain for what we're putting there, for what conceptually we're putting there, is a positive gain. Because we have, they have to walk an extra block.
Yeah,
Do you have a question?
Not so much a question, so much as an observation. I know that there has been talks about the PNC lot and the other public parking spaces possibly turning into something other than parking. So I would not bank on those staying parking. If you guys are thinking about transferring parking spaces or converting them into a restroom hutch area, I can get you in touch with Corey Sharp. I know that she'd been talking with our ZGA people to get more of a broader picture, if that would help.
Yeah, I might jump on that. I think it's dangerous to start trying to, I think identifying the need and the issues is very important. I think it's dangerous with all of the things that have been, sort of evolving in this town for the last 5 to 10 years to try to start to prescribe any sort of solutions without, you just talked about, like, a landscape architect, and you have this and that, and Kara's been doing all kinds of things, and there's stuff that's outside of even our hemisphere. I think you got, personal opinion is, without making it a big cumbersome process, maybe a little better compilation of the pieces that are in place, because there's a lot of anecdotal stuff I even hear about on the side. It's like, oh, really? We're going to do that kind of thing. So, and even like this lot that you're talking about, when it was done, it was set up for a placeholder for future development. And they tried to do a conduit. I think, Kern did it. There was a conduit development that couldn't, surprisingly, get off the ground because it's too expensive. But the notion of taking a hole in the center of the town and putting restrooms there that will be a fixture for the next, 50 years is something that I think all that ought to be worked into the bigger picture, I suppose. At the same time, we're looking at, houses, properties that are down the street that are been dark for 5 years, kind of thing. So I think it's all good, but I would be cautious about trying to jump too far to those kind of decisions, at least. given, you know,
So are you,
Ball State has studied the town a number of years ago. I mean, there's all kinds of different planning pieces and, you know, it feels like it might be, if that's wherever, I don't know where that is relative to the town and where our fit to that is, but looking at it holistically would be a real positive thing before, you know, beyond what I would, you know, you consider the R&R kind of stuff, which is important, and you can do that or we can do that as we need, but to think about a capital improvement is, it's going to be a, you know, there is a different kind of
Well, we're
thing.
still just a concept thinking as well, that there's just a community center that reaches people. He showed me the former Grillmaster building behind that doesn't have a lot of visibility, but size-wise, it sure looks good.
that piece of property would, that particular piece of property would be ideal because we're not making any, we're taking an existing building and transforming it.
With plumbing and everything else.
Yeah.
And, you know, would John even, you know, would there be flexibility with the ownership to, you know, because somebody was there at one point,
Yes,
wasn't the chamber.
yeah, it
Was it the
was,
You're talking about the yellow building?
yeah,
Yeah,
Back-
Be
back-
Happy
it was-
Peanut Butter was there. for a
But
while.
before that, there was
several
a,
months, and kind of the chamber used it as
yeah,
a welcome center.
there's a welcome center. That's right. Yeah. The point being is that maybe there's, you know, those kind of bigger things that could be sort of.
My vision would be to take what you talked about and shared with us and start putting it into a working document that starts to capture this menu of vision. Because for me, what I see is just a huge whiteboard of sticky notes of ideas. And it would be great to start consolidating this and then creating a strategy that has priority, start initiating the funding around the priorities. And I got really turned on by everything you showed us. Oh, sorry about that.
Well, I think that the good news is that kind of once you start to peel it back and see that all the possibilities that can take place within the space.
Yeah.
And until we understand, I think you're referring to the Gateway project, I would assume, is that?
Well, there's other things that, you know, people have talked about, and I'm not necessarily gonna,
Yeah, I mean,
put it
I'm
out
aware
in the
of those.
public realm, but there's other things that are out there, all of which are somewhere between 0 and 100% certain, 0 and 99% certain, you know, and so how do you take all that into account before, you know, in a capital improvement, not so much the cost, but I mean, what it does, you know, to create more either opportunity or barrier or boundary is, you know, is real. So, but, you know, I don't profess that any of us have all of the detail on what the next, you know, moving part is.
Is there a master plan that's in place? For the,
Not that I know of.
Well, I think that
There's a lot of different pieces and parts, but.
Yes, I think we couldn't really speak to what private ownership kind of entities might want to do with their land or do with their buildings. And in our discussion of this freestanding building, it was we didn't want to rely upon a private building owner to lease us, you know, that could change at any time. You know, what do we control and what could we control? So I think that what we would probably want from the town is what properties does the town own in the business district area, and what kind of, you know, visions have been created for those areas. Like you mentioned, Ball State has studied it. There's been the Gateway project. So maybe the town could come to us with, here's the properties that we own. Here's kind of the vision that the town currently has. And then if the town is aware of any other private development that's happening, that they could present those ideas to us as well, so we could kind of understand both the public and private visions for the business district that are currently known. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think that the strategy of identifying them as opportunities, since this group is kind of intimately aware of the texture of the village, as we're charged to do so, if we documented, we see these as opportunities, because I agree, like the first one that we looked at and this idea, and these are all really great ideas to say then to the town, maybe there's a meeting with Corey that could be helpful, just to make sure that she can loop in, you know, this group's leadership as much as she's able to the plans, and that we can offer up tee up the opportunities that may work well with the other adjacent development situations.
Yeah.
You know, and we may have gone a little too quickly in the sense of the things that are immediate that we can improve without changing anything other than some add-ons, and lighting is one of them.
Right.
And lighting and some of the surface work on the streets on the east side, you know, from Cedar to Oak, the re-bricking up that's close to the curbing, those sorts of things and then from Oak south, where the sidewalk narrows, that you can only have 2 people at a time walking down the sidewalk, and then people that are approaching, you have to get off onto the grass. And when I said about landscape architect is how can we creatively capture some of the grass area so that it becomes a pull-off. If people are approaching, if someone's in with a baby carriage, how do we have to have them walking in the grass or the mud? So it's not an effort to reshape. It's
Understand.
and that's what I meant by landscape architect. Is how do we? Because if you really look at that, there are 2 major blocks that need that kind of help.
Yeah, it was interesting because, you know, the winters here, you know, are kind of gray and the snow melts and everything. And when we were out there for 2 blocks, visitors getting out of their cars step out into mud.
Yeah.
Nothing but mud right off the curb, mud, sidewalk. And so just kind of opening our eyes to that, like, wow, that's not a good experience to have. You know, how do we enhance that? So some of those surface ideas. So based on that, you know, once again, I think we'd probably want some direction from town officials that, you know, you guys have engineers that you have contracts with, et cetera. Is that something we need to work with them on that? Does the town want to, you know, fund those types of engineering services, or should we be looking for a landscape architect, you know, to pay him out of our budget, or somebody who might want to volunteer some time, or a combination of both? So kind of some direction from the town on how you think we should proceed with additional professional consulting services for some of this.
And in concept, that's what we, as the business district management committee, is the sense is to put new fresh eyes on things and have we make them better with low investment, basically. Yeah. And starting this evening, I'm going to meet with Duke Energy to walk the village and understand where they come, what they own, what they like, what the town likes. And you know, it's simple things like the arms of the lights that I call them the REMC lights. Who turned on the lights in the country for a better life to be? Those sodium vapor lamps and the arms on those, that they have to have more contemporary lamp or arms that can go on those. We can change the temperature from that sodium vapor. That's simple things that can't be expensive overall to do. And then we do have a very dark village at night. So lights in the parking lots and side streets, and just by adding light, there are possibilities for a lot of private public partnerships for after 5 parking. And especially once I think this year that they're planning to, the town is planning to repave the streets within the village, within the business district. And when you start to get into what we now would consider an alleyways, when those start to get paved and with lighting, then all of a sudden that becomes a street. You know, because the number of restaurants that you walk out to and you're in an alleyway. And when the Brick Street Inn's new project comes online, that whole alleyway is going to be not an alleyway anymore. It's going to be open for business in a sense. And we've identified areas that we can put art. There are several business owners that have agreed to release the sides of their buildings for art. And there are places for sculpture. There are places that for mood lighting, if you will, so that we can present, at least in the evenings, a village that is a business district that is alive.
Not just Main Street.
No, but it will make those 4 blocks look as if it's doubled in size when it's lit. And it will, I think, as we go forward, give businesses an opportunity to want to stay open a little later.
Are you looking at this being a 2023 end of the year? We have certain projects are done.
No, I think what this is what I think the opportunity we've been given is to look at this at 30,000 feet and come back with concepts, and then take a look at where we partner, obviously with the town. And then we would, within that, whatever budget needs to be filled, then we make a presentation to the town council for the funds. But I think that just making it aware of the possibilities of putting a new face on the business district at virtually a low cost, I find it to be very intriguing and have a great deal of impact from an economic development standpoint. And it also raises the level of energy.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most important things, is it raises the level of energy.
And I've always been, to that end, I've always been kind of a believer, you gotta crawl, walk, run. So I think maybe my reaction, like to restrooms, which is not an irresponsible comment, but that's running.
Yeah.
We haven't even been crawling to a great extent. And there's certain things, just like that tree you talked about, you know, I'm not making a case for this, but I mean, a number of those trees, literally, if they were just limbed up a little bit, and some of that light that's on the street would become visible. You know, so there's a lot of things you can walk into this and without too much either investment or, you know, like permanence, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then that brings you into the next, you know, kind of level of decision. So I 100% agree. I told you that I'm an out-of-town client that I had at one point that metaphorically shrugged his shoulders. You know, it's that house blind is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 21 days and you don't see it kind of thing. And so, and there's a lot of that, I agree. So
I'm wondering aloud at, because I think this is so exciting, and I will repeat again, thank you so much for spearheading this. I think it's very important and a good opportunity for the town. I wonder to operationalize this and organize it. You know, as I'm thinking through this, can we, the language of we want to improve the user experience of the town, because that's a real selling point, a real business model, you know, for the town to invest money in, whether it's our money or we're getting or speaking into other people's funds usage. If we also could talk about itemizing, kind of taking a quick inventory of the user experience map, so to speak. What are the pain points and what are the opportunities? And then we could sort those into a couple different ways. You know, number one could be cost. If we decide the priority is low hanging fruit from a cost standpoint, that immediately prioritizes our list for us. If we decide that another one could be kind of adjacent partnership or stakeholders, some may have a lot of complicated adjacent partnerships. The restrooms, for example, may be one of those more complicated conversations to have. So maybe that makes it fall further down the list, or it falls to the top how we sort it. We could code this list of priorities and then have a discussion about, we can group, this could be one contract to get these done, that could be one contract to get those done. I think if we have an inventory and a map, perhaps we can all look at the priorities and why they're the priorities. That would be maybe my suggestion for a next step forward.
Kara, great, well said. I was going to talk about low hanging fruit, like, if it's the limbs and trimming, prioritizing this list. And then what authority do we have? Do we have authority to hire landscape architects? I don't think it's in our bylaws. So we need to adjust our bylaws to do some of this exercise. Yeah, Tom, this is awesome, by the way. And as Kara already said, but just maybe it's just starting some kind of a list and then putting, I do so much of this of prioritizing the list and coming up with a cost or at least a range or order of magnitude of what it might mean. And then helps us decide, okay, let's do these first three to crawl. And then, we start walking and then sprinting down the road or running, I guess. But then who do we present this to? Who's the arm or of the city or the town that would actually move forward with these exercises? Because I don't think that's really us, is it?
No, well, once again, the concept of this was to basically share the idea of the usability in the business district needs a lot of attention. And it's a normal process to see the sprint line and want to sprint to the end of the line, but we know that we have to do the low hanging fruit first. And that's the whole, the first starting point for us has always been looking at the low hanging fruit. But you can't just look at the low hanging fruit without seeing the future and what needs to go somewhere in the future. Not to be misunderstood that we want to take control and say, this is where this is going to go and that's where that's going to go. And it's not that. It's once you bring an awareness to it, then now you have an opportunity to solve an issue. And that's what we're bringing awareness to the things that are a bigger value from a dollar and cent standpoint, and an important strategic place of where it goes and how it functions. But within the low hanging fruit, just those items alone is a great start out of the gate. Because once you start to see that, you're going, oh yeah, we painted this room blue, and I think it's really a nice new color. Maybe we should take and look at the rest of the house.
But Tom, I would caution, we're doing a bold project by changing the usability of the community. But you sold me on the idea of economic development with this.
At every step, that's exactly
And I
what
would,
it is.
I would propose that we start putting a vision statement for what's the end in mind. And this is all done. If we had our vision, it would look like this. We would go after this, we'd go after this. And then we start breaking it down into the stages of affordability and the stages of priority. But I struggle with just picking the small pieces and the low hanging fruit early and working at it without seeing the bigger picture.
Well, some of it, I would agree, but some of it is so low hanging that,
Right.
You can
It's
It's
manage
on
it.
the ground.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And you can, and having been here enough, you can also process it to, the metaphor is the football team that continues to make plays in the huddle, but can't get out of the huddle and keeps getting penalized backwards. So I think there's a middle ground. I agree with what you're saying. I also think there's a middle ground because there is some stuff that's literally
Easy.
your bud example that's
Yeah.
pretty easy to at least create some.
But those are the
tangible-
priorities that we check off the list once we get the master plan put together and say, we want to get these things knocked out. And I think that's a 2023.
And I think that's why the first step needs to be just looking at the inventory, because right now we can all talk in
Yeah.
concepts, but until we're looking at the same thing, we may be completely aligned and go, yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
You can fix the wagon while it's going.
So
down
what
the
I'm
road
what
a
I'm
little bit,
curious
too.
about is that you guys mentioned several times being somewhat a little bit newer. So obviously great conversation, great ideas, but you mentioned several times the SIP program, right? So you have SIP, and is it an active SIP, capital improvement program? So do you indeed have a SIP active right now? And if you do, I wonder, because you mentioned life safety issues, and you mentioned improvement projects. You mentioned a lot of different buckets in that conversation, right? So what I'm curious about is what is actively being conducted. What projects do we have that are in line? Because if there is a SIP effort, then undoubtedly life safety should be within that. And life safety is your sidewalks, it's your lighting, it's all those things that you guys mentioned. So albeit if what the discussion is it sounds like we have the bandwidth to do more, right? And we would like to do more. And albeit if it's life safety or if it's if it's a combination of SIP efforts, then okay, how can we support that? Whether it's just naming the bona fide need and saying, hey, we have a need to do this, right? How can we support that? Whether it's just doing a case study or if it's providing the need and maybe the project value or the impact study or doing the estimated cost study or things of that sort that we can do. I think all of us as professionals have done several of these items ourselves, me included. So we can provide those things. But what is already being done, right? And that's what I'm curious about. So if you mentioned SIP, if it is indeed happening, I would motivate all of us to first find out what's going on and then see how we can, because who knows, maybe we're saying FY23, but maybe it's not. I mean, it is FY23, but maybe it's maybe it's not a next year effort. Maybe it's being done now. And how can we actually improve that? And albeit, I was an arborist at a younger life. So anytime we talk about cutting trees down, my heart flutters a little bit, right? So absolutely, to your point, Dave, yeah, if we can keep a tree, I'd love to keep a tree because trees are very difficult. We're not going to plant any 80-foot trees anytime soon, right? But obviously, if there's anything that we can do life safety wise to circumvent cutting the tree down, great, but sometimes they have to go. So what are we doing now? And I guess that's would be my question.
What'd you call it? SIP?
Well,
Capital improvements plan.
Yeah.
any of those would be buried in the DPW Lance's budget. I think they probably have a line item of stuff.
Maybe that's where we start.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think what Tom's been doing has been meeting with all those people within the town in those different groups, DPW streets and all of that. So, and kind of talking with them about what their plans are. Like he knows that they're repaving the alleys, and so that kind of that coordination is being handled by Tom, but I don't think it's formalized in that we know exactly which budget everything's coming out of. And that's why Tom was saying, present it to the town council.
Yeah. The opportunity we have been given is the recognition of that someone has looked at the business district and said, it's really time. And the low hanging fruit is going to make a huge difference, but we have no real authority in the sense of, but what we do have, and what I enjoy about it is we see issues and we bring solutions, and whether they accept the solution or not is up to them. But in the past, it's those that have been interested in the business district have only expressed their discord and brought nothing to the table. And this was an opportunity to sit with Lance and the mayor and the deputy mayor and offer an opportunity to let this committee, because of, as Kara said, we've been great stewards with the money, and we have changed the complex or the complexion of the business district a great deal in every penny that we've invested. And when we look at it as an economic development arm, well, this is the same opportunity we have with taking ideas to the town that are sound ideas. Right. And if they choose to do it or not is seriously up to them. But the simplicity and the sound thinking, I think, is what and what we have done as a committee in ZARC has given us the opportunity. I think everyone finds that we have a great deal of respect within the community because we have been great stewards of the town's money and what we've done with it. And so instead of having people that constantly want to express their discord and dislike and things that need to be done, well, we're trying to mute that, if you will. Sure. And what that does is then it opens up everyone's eyes about these projects can be done and can be done sooner than later. And so when we bring solutions to the table, I think that's mostly what the whole intent of this is, to bring solutions to the table. we're not trying to dictate anything or ask for any money. Other than if we bring something to the table and it's approved, then we'll be more than happy to take it in front of the town council and ask for them.
So the big change here, if I will, just to kind of, bridge the conversation a little bit, so that those of us aren't quite as experienced in Zionsville committee actions know kind of what's going on. So I think, so the difference here, as I understand it, is that typically a owner or a representative of an owner or somebody in the business district would come to us with an idea or something they have a need for, and we would support that need through whatever sort of beautification or otherwise adoption of additional funding for them to support what their need was downtown, right? It's the simplest form,
Well,
right?
this, what the architectural review committee does, we're fairly well defined on where we give money and what we give money to.
Sure, without
But we,
oversimplifying it, right?
but we aren't part of the extra architectural review committee. We are not taking requests from the town or anyone that, they come in and say, well, we want to do this landscaping in front of our business.
Right.
No, we are not doing that.
Right.
This is just the opportunity to have a group of professionals that the town respects and what we've done, steward with the money and the vision. Yeah. We're more of a visionary than what management, the business district management committee is more of a visionary of the improvements that can be made.
Okay.
And at the same time, don't just state them, bring solutions to it.
So the difference for this, would we be more of the driver and saying, hey, look, we have some life safety efforts in this area that would help the business district in this area, lighting issues, maybe wayfinding issues, things of that sort.
Yeah.
Yes, and then within that, whatever, at least for me, however I can assist in making that move forward sooner than later. Because right now, Lance and the street department, they're just overwhelmed. Within the last 5 to 10 years, town has tripled. And so the roadways and pathways that they have to take care of. And sometimes it's just difficult to have someone looking over the business district. We will help in once the new landscape company or whoever the contract goes to this year for landscaping. It also gives us the opportunity to monitor, if you will. The town, Lance doesn't have to have someone coming through to make sure they're doing their work. So part of this would be, which I'm willing to do, is to, and which we would like to do, for example, is to have a conversation with the landscape company about possibly a selection of different flowers, that hang in the pots there. Since they have started to hothouse them, and now they come and they're actually cascading before they were put in the spring, and you're expecting them to grow. Well, we can change. Why does it always have to be pink? It sounds crazy, but it's a different kind of energy again. To be able to have our identity and to build an identity that's the business district.
If I tell me if this feels right to how we're all saying this, but it feels as though we have this unique kind of skill set to basically be a resource to the town, to help to utilize our skill set and our eyes, feet on the ground in order to help the town make decisions, whether it's Lance's department or if the money comes from elsewhere. So our goal, I think, is not to have authority on anything, as it stands today, but to just offer up resources that we already have eyes on and are tuned to. Right.
I think that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. For example, if we'll take the pocket park where the town clock is. If we just let the parks department would probably go in this spring and clean it up and make sure the bushes are healthy all the way around. Well, but that's pretty and nice and all, but what it does psychologically, it says this is possibly private property. With the bushes that surround it, as well as am I welcome to go in there? Because is this part of those buildings, or is this? So it's taking that space and either suggest designs that can take place in that space, or make the park department a partner in thinking that this could be changed and better serve the village and the visitors. So I think without the opportunity of us just putting eyes on things, that would probably stay the same for forever. I mean, they'd just go in and clean it up and make it look nice and done.
Until you
It's
told me
big
it was,
space that can open up a lot of energy.
until you told me it was public, I thought it was private.
Yeah.
Yep, me too.
No, and so that it's that kind of look at, is that low hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Well, if it's low hanging fruit, but can it make a visual difference in a heartbeat? And is it gonna cost a lot of money? No. You know,
I'm an engineer and I love tables. So I've just taken some of these items today and started a Google Sheets list that we can share and track some of this stuff, and at least start, instead of Post-its on the wall, which also is such a great idea for doing ideas and just, spitballing things that are concepts. And then it'll help us just put some of the information down. I've just put some columns in there and some headers. I can share it with everyone, and it's just an early iteration of it. But it'll help us. And then I put in like potential town involvement, who from our team might be leading it, a priority, which I'm not going to put a priority number on any of them yet, but at least there's a column for it. And a date we initiated, and it'll help us to at least gather all this information. And then, if it's low hanging fruit, boom, let's knock off. Maybe it's the limbs getting trimmed. Maybe it's is there something with the roots or the brick on the sidewalk that we can adjust? Is there the mud in the streets? Maybe we hit those first. And the toilets and restrooms, for me, that's a big item, because I know there's the gateway was a big discussion and how that's going to come into the city and what if that's actually going to move forward, or the other ideas, and where the location of that will be. And then if the landscape architect, or if there's another architectural firm that's already looked at the master planning, what those are. So maybe it's just right now, it's just these ideas as we keep pulling them together, and this will help us gather this. I can share it if you want to look at it.
No, I appreciate that, Mike. That's kind of what Kara was talking about. Everybody has different expertises. And so, you're able to create that chart and understand what kind of columns might be needed. And then people here can look at it and say, hey, let's add another column and all that. So I think that's a wonderful initiative on your part.
All right.
I think that
So you want to be secretary?
Sure seems like.
I'm going to give it to David and
I was just thinking that,
password to
you said
David.
secretary, you do this, yeah.
David, I can keep
I feel
this
an
piece if
impeachment.
that makes sense.
So you are the secretary of the Zionsville Business District Improvement Program.
I'm assistant to the regional manager if you watch The Office.
I think it's important for the general public to understand what this is and without any mistakes. We have no control of anything. We want to come to the table with suggestions, ideas, solutions, and how those get implemented. So we have no budget. We're not asking for any money. And we're not trying to recreate the wheel. So some of the things that we're talking about, if they're, we have no idea if they're already in work or not. And so if they are, then we'll find out when I keep, by the way, Lance and the mayor and the deputy mayor, they're always aware of what I'm doing. I'm not just out there running around. They know that I'm meeting with Duke Energy tonight. It's not as out this cloak and dagger stuff.
Right. And you wouldn't be signing any kind of a contract with Duke Energy. You are going to be able to come to the town with ideas and opportunities, right?
Correct. One of the low hanging fruits, if you will, towards the end of the year, we're talking about new flags that need to be in the village. And the supplier for, that the town had been using, I think due to COVID, is no longer in operation. So I researched and found, and compared prices with 3 different flag companies, and gave the information to Lance and Roger for them to decide on who received the contract. And so it's that kind of assistance, you know, so the flags are here and new flags are in place and poles, and it's that kind of assistance. It's low hanging fruit, but that's one other thing that the town had, that Lance had other people, that other things that they could be doing elsewhere. So it's, you know, you want to be a good steward of your community and participate. And I find it better to be able to participate and bring solutions and at least awareness. And once you have the awareness, then those things that are in place that have some dust on them because they're busy with other projects, well, we're just going to squeak the wheel a little bit.
Yeah.
For the business district.
Yep.
So I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea that we're trying to reinvent the wheel and we're asking, and no, we're not. Actually, we're doing just the opposite. We're trying to be of service as smoothly as possible. And that's all.
Yeah. Yep.
Well said.
It's good. Yep. Appreciate your efforts on
No,
that.
I appreciate you all having to, that you jumped on board. And within my fellow board members, it's not asking for time. It's asking for your expertise, your vision, and your thoughts. You know, I'm not asking anyone, I will not ask anyone to go out and do so. I will do the legwork and that myself, but when walking the village together, it was incredible from what I see. And then once I pointed out to you, and all of a sudden you see something, and then your creativity strikes, and it just becomes so darn exciting. It's unbelievable.
Yep. So as far as the next meeting, you'll give us another update about
Sure.
things and ideas and.
Oh, and as it goes on, I will email you all so that it may not even be necessary to have a meeting about just this. But for this particular one, because we've walked the village together, I thought it'd be important for us to sit and talk about it in publicly, but so the public understands what this means.
Right.
Tom, somebody asked me recently about bike racks in town, so people could ride in and park their bikes.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, we do need bicycle racks. And then, but once again, have to identify where they're going to go.
Yeah.
None of them are going to go on the east side of Main Street.
So there's a rack at the public parking lot. There's a bike there every few months. The thing about bicycle racks is they have to be at the point of destination or near it, right? And so now you're into the private realm too, and yeah, but those are good. Those are very good things for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know that rack was there, but somebody asked me
Yeah,
if
you're not.
we had a bike rack, would we bring more bicyclists from the community neighborhoods into town, and didn't dawn on me.
Yeah, it's visibility and frequency of bike racks and visibility of bike racks.
Yeah.
You know, you've walked by, you didn't see it, you know, I've seen it, but most people wouldn't. And then so if you have multiple bike racks.
It must be after the 21st day, because I haven't seen
it. Yeah.
It's right next to the benches that are literally facing the front end of the cars.
How did I miss those?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are all, good things. We've talked about them in different times. And, if it were a college community, people would just chain them to the trash can or the light pole. But
Yeah.
in a community like this, there aren't as many bike riders. So you want to make it more intuitive that, how do you do all that? And to Tom's point, most of the sidewalks aren't wide enough to accommodate it. So unless you get into the street and create, which all of that's out there. So,
But if we created something that spoke to bikes specifically and was aware, I think it might actually be more of a attraction. I won't ride my bike into town because I have no idea where to park it.
Right.
Yeah, you kind of spur the ideas right to by seeing nice,
Yeah,
nice parking,
secure it.
right?
Yeah.
Well, secure and even opportunities for covered bike parking. And
If any of you have been to Denmark, you'll notice that they don't have garage parking lots for cars, they have garage parking lots for bikes.
Just got back from Amsterdam.
you know,
Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
Well, we could.
All right,
I've
so
taken
I
up
would,
more of your time than
We're
necessary.
obviously very excited about it, which
Yeah.
is the good news,
Yeah.
so,
right?
so in addition to updates from Tom, I had mentioned that the town might be able to provide us with information about what property the town owns and any master plans that have been created, any design shreds that have been done, so that we can kind of be more aware of the town's current ideas and future goals.
Yeah, I'll, like I said, I definitely think you guys should reach out to Corey Sharp. I can help facilitate that communication. As far as
And-
plans that have kind of been going on, I mean, most of that's posted on the website, but
Say, I can also, well, you can reach out to Corey. I can also spearhead that if you would like. Okay,
that's fine.
I can do that. That works.
Cool. All right.
One last thing, Tom, for those right brain people in the room, and I'm not in that category, do you have an interest in naming this project or having some sort of a creative project name?
Always.
Thank you.
I'll speak on behalf of all the creative folk.
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
Let's give it a
Any
name,
branding opportunity there is, absolutely.
and then it becomes a little bit cachet that it's got a name to it.
Yeah.
That's you, Kara?
I'll throw ideas on anything.
Okay.
I'm always saying, maybe on the wall. See what happens.
Right now, it's the improvement program, and I'm not sure that's sexy enough.
Sure,
Mhm.
Well, and,
we can think on it.
and as of now, January 27th, I'm meeting with the mayor and deputy mayor. It's an update. I met with him November 30th, and so like a couple of months. So by the end of the month, we've moved further along and take to the table. Here's ideas on lighting.
Mhm.
You know, and
Yep.
these ideas and of course they work with Duke Energy all the time, but once again, so it's not that we're out there running rogue, folks. Well, sometimes it it's like you whisper something in one person's ear and by the time it gets down to the other end of the table,
Yeah,
it was mass murder.
yeah. Yes, we're learning that. All right, any other comments, discussions? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Sure.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our next meeting is Tuesday, February the 14th at 8 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Valentine's Day.